I love RPGs, but I really hate D&D. So I've decided to take a minute to spread the hatred and show you why you should hate it too. So initially you might be thinking, this is all going to be ridiculous, no RPG is innately better than another, and this is all just a matter of personal taste. However, I think this is a bit more like car parts. Of course you can have your own preferences when it comes to cars, but some cars are just objectively better than others. And even if you want to go down to particular things that you might want to do with a car, say, I don't know, jumping across rough terrain versus getting good miles per gallon, whatever you want to do, there's a better and a worse car for doing just that thing. And D&D seems to do absolutely nothing well, including and perhaps especially this high fantasy world that it wants to portray. So let's start out with exactly what happens when you create a character. First things first, you've got some attributes. So you've got strength, dexterity, constitution, and you might think you've got some numbers to fill these in with. Some amount of ability scores. But no. Of course, you could fill them in like, a 16 and an 8 and a whatever, but most of the time people aren't using that. Most of the time you'll have a dungeon master who's got some sort of point-buy system. So let's have a look at that. How does that work? Well, you buy various points, and of course each attribute of different levels costs a different thing. Total points 11. Of course these don't add up to 11. There is a formula out there which will tell you what kind of attributes cost a certain number of points. So you get attribute buying points, which then buy these main attributes. So you've got some attributes here, 14, 16, 12. So you might think, finally, your attributes are done. But that's not how it happens. You stick in 14, 6, 12... and this is not going to be used for the entire game. You never have a reason to reference this number 14. Instead, you get an ability modifier. What's the ability modifier? Well, you have to look it up on tables, or you can do the handy formula of the actual attribute minus 10 all over 2, which gives us 2. So we can stick in a 2 there, or with something like 6. 10 minus 6, 6 minus 10 is minus 4 over 2 is minus 2 penalty. So you can just keep on going like that for the attributes. And then finally, after going for the points buys to the attributes, we finally get to the actual bonus that you're going to use. Why not just start with this number here? Why all the needless confusion going on? Okay, next on to skills. Now, you might think, finally, you could at least just buy some skills, right? You've got points, but, that's true, but then the points are erratic and confusing. Exactly how much do you get for buying the skills? Well, once again, you have a formula. So you get a certain number of skill points, which depends on your class. So you need to look up that number in your class. So if you're a rogue, it'll be something like 6. So if you're starting at 3rd level, you get 6 multiplied by your level is 18, plus, of course, your intelligence bonus, once again multiplied by your level, plus 1 per 1 per level in your primary class. So yes, you may have multiple classes. One has to be primary. If you're like a paladin / ranger, you've got to make some decisions there. So for every level, if in your primary class, you can get either 1 skill point or 1 hit point, which you have to track separately. How do you track this here? It's not clear. You just sort of stick it on, and if you want to check it afterwards, you can count up all the skill points and all the hit points and see what you should have had. Assuming you're not rolling for hit points, in which case you're not going to work it out from that number. Okay, but P for primary class, or primary levels, times 1, plus, if you're a human, then you get 1 per level again. Okay, so after all this, you've got your crazy formula here. You can finally start sticking stuff in, and you think, I want to be a fantastic craftsman. I want to make swords. I'm going to be a sword craftsman, Fantasy game, you're going to be a fantastic dwarf who's forging the best swords. Great. So at this point, since the system goes up to like plus 20 ranks, you might think, what's a good sword someone could have? You know, plus 15 ranks in this, plus 10 at least. So you go to stick in 10 ranks. And that's disallowed. The GM says nope. For some reason, you cannot decide to be that good at something. So you can stick in a maximum number of ranks equal to your level. You stick in 3, you got maybe some intelligence bonus, hopefully, and you'll get a total of 4. This is clearly not representing somebody who's particularly good at the thing. So you have to inch your way up with absolutely everything. It's not clear why the level cap is there, something about balancing, but yeah. Whatever you want a character who's going to be good at, disguise, flying, fantastic with animals, it's simply barred. Unless, of course, you want to pick a ranger and then you get some extra ability, a class thing for handling animals, or maybe a mock spell. But why? Why not just allow people to have whatever abilities they want? This is just ridiculous. Okay, so next up you get into items. You've got some sort of wizardy character, and because of specializations, you've been barred from using, like, mage shield or something. So there's your mage. No worries, you say. I'm just going to save up a little bit of money and get some plate armor for him. Then it'll be really, really hard to hit. So you find a nice overshirt. He's looking like a proper mage. So next up, on with the armor. And nope. Your GM says that is not happening. This is just completely disallowed. Why exactly? Well, because mages can't have the armor wearing skill. What if you want the mage to learn how to wear armor? How the hell does one learn how to wear armor anyway? It's a coat! It's designed to be well-fitting. You stick it on, it's got some straps, you walk around in it. Of course, if you're not very muscular, you're going to get tired, but it's not the same thing as not being able to wear it. Joan of Arc didn't have extensive training wearing armor. She put it on, and then she wandered about the place. You don't even need special male-female fitting armor. As long as it's roughly your size, you can just stick it on. It's demonstrably fine. But no, this character's a mage, and will need to hamper himself by taking levels in fighter just to wear the armor, along with special armor-wearing skills, which of course you have to keep track of after that. But never mind, our mage is going to learn some spells. So, down to, oh my god, look at this list. So many spells, but fine, you only have to look at one, that's alright. 0 level spells, so you've got to pick like 5 of these, but from a massive, massive list. And of course this list only gets better once you get expansions. So you start reading this stuff. Okay, what's this one? What's that one? And they've all got their own wee individual descriptions. This is going to take all day. Okay, so you make a rough guess, pick a few 0 level spells, and then the first level spells, what's this one? And my god, there's hundreds of these things. So you're looking all through this stuff. Pick one, pick another. If you're starting at 3rd level, of course you're going to have to pick some 2nd level spells. And after immense amounts of bookkeeping, you finally think, okay, so we can start now, right? No, you cannot start. You also need to pick your spells for the day. So you need to write in all your things. It's like magic missile. And then you need to pick which spells are going to be the memorized ones. I'm not even sure how to do that in this character sheet. Look at this. Fine for sorcerers. Let's say, one of these, 2... Oh, no. 2 spells. One there. Something like 5 here. You need to pick which ones you're memorizing each and every day. And of course you can get multiple game days in an adventure, so you're just constantly scoring out, rubbing out, then rewriting all these different things in different boxes. Where is it meant to go? I have no idea. This is the 2nd page of the character sheet, and apparently you need a 3rd and possibly a 4th page if you want to use any kind of wizardy spells. Or indeed any kind of cleric spells. Cleric spells work in just the same way, except there's even more of them to read, because you get access to entire spheres. Okay, but after that lot, you can start to actually play the game, right? Okay, so game starting is going to be starting with a fight. That's right. The dungeon master is starting you off in a tavern with like goblins and ogres and people are throwing chairs about. Fantastic. And everyone stop. Roll for initiative. You get a 19. You might think that with your rubbish dexterity penalty or whatever, you're going to have a horrible time, but most of the time initiative is just this random number. With such a large random number generator as the D20, your individual little modifications that you get from dexterity and such, they do very little. So most of the time you're just working with this base number. But hey, at least you only have to roll it once, so combat starts and it's your turn, you'd roll the D20 and boop, miss. So let's say you need a 15 or more to hit and you've got a +3 bonus to hit. You're going to be working with an effective 12 or more in order to hit. So round 2, you try again. Failure. Round 3, failure. And finally you hit. You've got some damage. Boop. 5 damage. Okay. 3 rounds it's taken you to get to 5 damage. All with people rolling dice all over the place. That's barely enough to kill anyone. So you continue with the roll and other things. Oh, fantastic, an 18 there. Somebody's dead. Finally, first combatant felled. What was that, round 5? And this right here, this is what combat looks like. Once you pull out the descriptions and all the bare bones, and just look at what exactly you're doing when it comes to the actual system, this is it. It's just, there's no tactics. There's nothing to keep the interest. It's just a random number generator, which is maybe fine with some description for a few fights, but this is like months and months worth of gaming just using the same thing. And I know, of course, you've got a little bit of basic tactics. You have flanking, but this is just an option. Do you want to stand behind somebody or not? Or if you are, then you get a bonus. And of course, if the option is available, you take it. If it's not available, you don't take it. You might have a feat which allows you to do a great bashy bash once per combat or once per round. But again, the obvious option is just use it. If it's there and everyone's the same, just use it. If there's a large creature there, then save your big bashy thing for the large ogre. There's no tactics here. You could program a computer to play anything like this, to play the game for you very simply. Okay, so after a while, combat's going on, and worst of all happens, your cleric is dead. So that player decides, okay, I'm going to make up a new character this time. Maybe a ranger or a sorcerer, and the GM and everyone else has to say, nope, no, I'm afraid you won't. No clerics, no sorcerers, no rangers, no sorcerers. You have to pick a cleric. Why do you have to pick a cleric? Well, somebody in the group has to go the cleric because the system simply does not function without healing magic. You know, if you've got 15 hit points, then after some battle you go down to 10. You're scuppered if this keeps going on. You're in a position where you could quite easily die. After one more fight, that's it. So you have to have the cleric to jump back up to 15 hit points. Now you may think that's realistic and people get damaged, but there are so many ways of dealing with this. Different people have like narrative mechanics where they stop getting hit, but only a certain number of times. You get certain luck points or hero points or whatever. There are loads of ways of dealing with this. And this method of dealing with it by having a cleric means that you absolutely have to have a cleric or the system ceases to function. And as a result, the genre cannot replicate things like The Lord of the Rings, or Full Metal Alchemist, or A Wizard of Earthsea, or any of the other million fantasy worlds where people are constantly using healing magic. So in conclusion, all this character creation stuff is needlessly complicated. You could make some sort of point buying system that makes this an awful lot simpler. The leveling system is just absolutely ridiculous and adds all sorts of layers of complexity. The restrictions on skills, armor, all sorts of things like that, totally pointless, don't represent the genre well. All this point buy stuff, ridiculously complicated. Combat inevitably grinds to halt and becomes dull and unengaging, and the spell list is just needlessly cumbersome for what it does. There are much simpler ways of doing this. And that is why I hate D&D.